In Sunday school, we were taught that Samson was one of the great heroes of the Bible. I mean, what could be more cool than killing 1,000 bad guys with the jawbone of a donkey? He wasn't a timid man like Gideon. He was a bull in a china shop. Joshua and King David were mighty warriors and conquered countless enemies of Israel. But they were just mortal men. With Samson, the Lord gave him a special kind of physical strength found only in comic book superheroes. He was the last judge of the period of the Judges, ruling roughly between 1098 and 1078 BC. And he is listed in the book of Hebrews as one of the great men of faith. But then we grew up, only to discover that Samson wasn't the best of Christian examples. He made no effort to control his passions, sought revenge against people for any reason, and lived as self-centered a life as the grandest of narcissists. But the Lord brought Samson into the world for special reasons, and used him despite his lack of wholesome character. Judges 13 begins with, once again, Israel sinned by worshiping other gods. So the Lord let them be conquered by the Philistines, who kept them in submission for 40 years. Moses had warned the people about how to deal with other nations upon entering the Promised Land. He told them not to intermarry or adapt to their customs, knowing this would lead the Israelites into worshiping pagan gods. But the Israelites went ahead and did it anyway, and developed a pattern: worship false gods, get punished by God, cry out to God to save them, and promise to worship Jehovah only, and then start the cycle all over again. No one knows the exact origin of the Philistines, but it is believed they settled along the southern section of Canaan in around 1175 BC. They were a long-time thorn in Israel's side, and would later, much to Israel's dismay, steal the Ark of the Covenant. In Samson's day, they were the rulers of the land. But the Lord would bail out Israel once again, using Samson as a chief vessel. Then one day an angel of the Lord appeared to the wife of Manoah, of the tribe of Dan, who lived in the city of Zorah. Not much is known about Manoah, and his wife's name is never mentioned, but she was to have one of the great divine encounters recorded in the Bible. She had no children, but the angel said to her,
"Even though you have been barren so long, you will soon conceive and have a son. Don't drink any wine or beer, and don't eat any food that isn't kosher. Your son's hair must never be cut, for he shall be a Nazirite, a special servant of God from the time of his birth, and he will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines."
A Nazirite was one who made a vow to separate himself for special service for God. Roughly 400 years before, this had been commanded by God to Moses, and the Nazirite vow meant abstinence from the joys of the grapevine, which meant not only no wine, but no grapes, raisins, or vinegar. Most Nazirites chose to make the vow themselves. But the Bible names 3 men who were chosen to be Nazirites before birth: Samson, Samuel, and John the Baptist. The woman ran and told her husband,
"A man from God appeared to me, and I think he must be an angel of the Lord, for he was almost too glorious to look at. I didn't ask where he was from, and he didn't tell me his name, but he told me, 'You are going to have a baby boy.' And he told me not to drink any wine or beer, and don't eat any food that isn't kosher. For the baby is going to be a Nazirite. He will be dedicated to God from the moment of his birth till the day of his death."
Manoah's first response to this outrageous news was to pray for the angel to come back with more instructions. Some believe Manoah was jealous. Why did this man appear to her instead of me? But most believe Manoah simply wanted information. If a man tells your barren wife that she's going to have a son, you want some details. Then Manoah prayed,
"O Lord, please let the man from God come back to us again, and give us more instructions about the child you are going to give us."
The Lord answered his prayer, and the angel of God appeared once again to his wife as she was sitting in the field. But again she was alone. Manoah was not with her. So she quickly ran and found her husband and told him.
"The same man is here again."
Manoah ran back with his wife and asked,
"Are you the man who talked to my wife the other day?"
It sounds kind of amusing to read now, like, "Say, are you that fellow who said the creator of the universe was going to give us a son?" But if you're looking for instructions from a messenger of God, you want to be sure you have the right messenger. When he said he was, Manoah asked him,
"Can you give us any special instructions about how we should raise the baby after he is born?"
Be sure your wife follows the instructions I gave her. She cannot eat grapes or raisins, or drink any wine or beer, or eat anything that isn't kosher.
Then Manoah said to the angel,
"Please stay here until we can get you something to eat."
I'll stay, but I'll not eat anything. However, if you wish to bring something, bring an offering to sacrifice to the Lord.
Roughly 100 years before, at a threshing floor in Ophrah, an angel of the Lord had appeared to Gideon, with a promise of Israel being delivered from their enemies. Now, in Zorah, Manoah would go through a similar experience. Then Manoah asked him for his name.
When all this comes true and the baby is born, we will certainly want to tell everyone that you predicted it.
Don't even ask my name, for it is a secret.
Then Manoah took a young goat and a grain offering, and offered it as a sacrifice to the Lord. And the angel did a strange and wonderful thing. For as the flames from the altar were leaping up toward the sky, and as Manoah and his wife watched, the angel ascended in the fire. Manoah and his wife fell face downward on the ground, and that was the last they ever saw of him. This was the kind of exit that made it clear to Manoah that this wasn't just a man who had been their visitor. Manoah cried out,
"We will die, for we have seen God."
But his wife said,
"If the Lord were going to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted our burnt offerings, and wouldn't have appeared to us and told us this wonderful thing, and done these miracles."
The unnamed woman had more faith than her husband did. Why on earth would God make such promises and then turn around and kill him? Many consider the angel's exit as a foreshadowing of the ascent of Christ to heaven. When her son was born, they named him Samson, and the Lord blessed him as he grew up. The Bible tells us that the Spirit of the Lord began to come upon him. This lets the reader know that the Lord was preparing him for his mission. And then a certain girl caught Samson's eye. One day when he was in Timnah, he noticed a certain Philistine girl, and when he got home, he told his mother and father that he wanted to marry her. They were not pleased with his choice.
"Why don't you marry a Jewish girl?" Why must you go and get a wife from these heathen Philistines? Isn't there one girl among all the people of Israel that you could marry?"
But Samson told his father,
She is the one I want. Get her for me.
many people would be in big trouble if they spoke to their father that way, and it didn't look too good. Here was Samson being prepared to deliver Israel from the Philistines, and yet, on impulse, he wanted to jump in and marry a woman of the Philistines. But his father and mother didn't realize that the Lord was behind the request, for God was setting a trap for their enemies. Upon arriving in Timnah, he spoke with the girl and found her to be just what he wanted, so arrangements were made. As Samson and his parents were going to Timnah, a young lion attacked Samson in the vineyards on the outskirts of town. At that moment, the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and since he had no weapon, he ripped the lion's jaw apart, and did it as easily as though it were a young goat. Samson's killing of the lion with his bare hands is one of the Bible's most famous moments. It has been suggested that the Lord was showing Samson the power he would give him in defeating the Philistines, but he didn't tell his parents about the incident. When he returned for the wedding, he turned off the path to look at the carcass of the lion, and he found a swarm of bees in it and some honey. He took some of the honey with him, eating it as he went, and gave some of it to his father and mother, but he didn't tell them where he had gotten it. It has been suggested that the lion represented the Philistines, and the honey symbolized the sweetness of victory over an enemy. And there has been much debate over whether Samson should have eaten the honey at all. Part of the Nazirite vow was not touching a dead body, considered to be unclean, and there was an argument over whether Samson's touching of the lion's body as an animal would be considered a rule-breaking act. As his father was making the final arrangements for the marriage, Samson threw a party for 30 young men of the village, as was the custom of the day. When Samson asked if they would like to hear a riddle, they replied that they would.
If you solve my riddle during these 7 days of the celebration, I will give you 30 plain robes and 30 fancy ones. But if you can't solve it, then you must give them to me.
They all agreed.
All right, let's hear it.
This was the riddle. Food came out of the eater, and sweetness from the strong.
3 days later, they were still trying to figure it out. On the 4th day, they said to his new wife,
Get the answer from your husband, or we'll burn down your father's house with you in it. Were we invited to this party just to make us poor?
If you've ever seen a wedding reception go sour, I'm sure it was better than this one. They weren't threatening violence over religious beliefs or personal opinion. They were threatening violence over a riddle. So Samson's wife broke down in tears and said,
You don't love me at all. You hate me. For you have told a riddle to my people, and haven't told me the answer.
I haven't even told my mother and father. Why should I tell you?
This marriage was not off to a great start. She's desperately trying to save her family, and her new husband is in no hurry to lend a hand. So she cried whenever she was with him, and kept it up for the remainder of the celebration. At last, on the 7th day, he told her the answer. And she, of course, gave the answer to the young men. So before sunset on the 7th day, They gave him their reply.
What is sweeter than honey? And what is stronger than a lion?
If you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle.
Plowed with my heifer. In other words, Samson knew his wife had told them. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went to the city of Ashkelon, killed 30 men, took their clothing, and gave it to the young men who had told him the answer to the riddle. Samson paid the 30 Philistines, but at the cost of the lives of 30 other Philistines. But Samson was furious about it, and abandoned his wife, and went back home to live with his father and mother. So his wife was married instead to the fellow who had been the best man at Samson's wedding. This marriage was so volatile, it's amazing it lasted a week. But Samson was a moody fellow, and actually tried to make amends. Later on, during the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat as a present for his wife, intending to sleep with her, but her father wouldn't allow it.
I really thought you hated her, so I married her to your best man. But look, her sister is prettier than she is. Marry her instead.
Samson was furious.
You can't blame me for what happens now.
So he went and caught 300 foxes and tied their tails together in pairs, with a torch between each pair. And he lit the torches and let the foxes run through the fields of the Philistines, burning the grain to the ground, along with all the sheaves and shocks of grain, and destroying the olive trees. Samson was very imaginative in the way he got revenge, but it meant the end for his ex-wife and ex-father-in-law. When the Philistines demanded who did this, they were told it was Samson, because his wife's father had given her to another man. So the Philistines came in and got the girl and her father and burned them alive. But Samson wasn't done yet.
Now my vengeance will strike again.
So he attacked them with great fury and killed many of them. Samson paid back revenge with revenge. Samson went to live in a cave at the rock of Elam, which was believed to be in the low hill country of Zorah. The Philistines sent a huge posse into Judah and raided Lehi, which was believed to be in the hill country west of Bethlehem.
Why have you come here?
To capture Samson and do to him as he has done to us.
So 3,000 men of Judah went down to get Samson at the cave at the rock of Elam.
What are you doing to us? Don't you realize that the Philistines are the rulers?
I only paid them back for what they did to me.
The men of Judah were obviously terrified of their oppressors. They didn't see Samson as a one-man army getting rid of Philistines for them. They saw him as an out-of-control troublemaker.
We have come to capture you and take you to the Philistines.
All right, but promise me you won't kill me yourselves.
The men of Judah agreed not to kill him, but tied him with 2 new ropes and led him away. As Samson and his captors arrived in Lehi, the Philistines shouted with glee. But then the strength of the Lord came upon Samson, and the ropes with which he was tied snapped like thread and fell from his wrists. Then he picked up a donkey's jawbone that was lying on the ground and killed 1,000 Philistines with it. Tossing away the jawbone, he remarked,
Heap upon heaps, all with a donkey's jaw. I've killed 1,000 men. all with a donkey's jaw.
It is safe to say that no soldier in the history of the world ever did that. The place was named Jawbone Hill. But now he was very thirsty, and prayed to the Lord and said,
You have given Israel such a wonderful deliverance through me today. Must I now die of thirst and fall to the mercy of these heathen?
He had just killed 1,000 Philistines, and yet he feared for his life because he needed a drink of water. So the Lord caused water to gush out from a hollow in the ground, and Samson's spirit was revived as he drank. So the place was named the Spring of the Man Who Prayed.